Welcome to Kari's Kitchen. I'm Kari Auringer. I'm the winemaker for Cornerstone Cellars. I'm here with my husband Jeff.
Hello.
Jeff and I are in the kitchen today. We're going to make a really nice winter comfort food recipe, right? And this recipe comes from a member of ours, a wine club member of ours at Cornerstone Cellars, so I'm pretty excited to try this.
Yeah, it was great that they sent us a recipe.
And we'd love it if you have some recipes that you know pair well with your favorite Cornerstone wine. We'd be happy to have them. Please send them to us at info@cornerstonecellars.com. And we would love to do these on a future episode.
Yeah.
So today, it's still, we're in the dead of winter, really. It's February.
We can kind of see the horizon, but we're still, we're pushing through the end of the winter. So something to get you happy and comfortable and warm and nourished, just to get you through the light at the end of the tunnel.
So we've got, we should cheers, because we're in the kitchen.
We are.
And we should have this when we're cooking. So cheers.
We should have this all the time.
And I'll get to the wines we're tasting today in just a minute. The recipe we're doing is a creamy bacon mushroom soup. And it is a heartwarming soup.
Very much so.
I think it would be great with, you could serve it with a side salad, but you could also serve it with some crusty bread. It's a nice winter warmer, both lunch and dinner.
You could serve it as a soup course before a big meal.
You could. So we do have 3 wines that we think are going to pair pretty well with it. Of course, our club member gave us a pretty good idea of what she wanted to taste with this soup. So let's get started with the soup.
Sure.
All right. So, this is pretty easy, and we've done a little bit of work ahead of time. So what we've done is we've taken 6 slices of really thick cut bacon and just chopped them up and sautéed them, and then we set them aside.
You cook them until they're not quite done. Definitely don't get them to where they're crisp. You take the bacon out and you leave the drippings in the pan, and then you add the butter.
Just 2 tablespoons of butter.
Yep, and then you saute your onions and your mushrooms, which are just cremini mushrooms. It's a half an onion and
half a yellow onion
and half a pound
and
of
8
mushrooms.
ounces, right? And 8 ounces of mushrooms, and you can use any mushrooms you like.
Yeah, and we use creminis because they're one of our favorites.
Yeah, and they're easy to find.
Just clean them and chop them and put them in there. And after about 6 or 7 minutes, those are both cooked, and this is the next step.
So you've got the mushrooms in there.
Mushrooms, bacon, everything. Well, the bacon's up to the side, but the bacon drippings and the mushrooms and the onions are all cooked and ready to go. The next thing you do is how much garlic is there?
Well, you know what? That's a very good question, because I always put in a lot of garlic, but there's 6 cloves here.
Perfect. And you can adjust that if you don't like garlic, or if you're like us and garlic fiends, you can add 20, whatever you want.
You can. It just depends. Hopefully everyone's having the soup.
Let's hope.
Because you can do it as a first course in your dinner, but it'd be nice if everybody was having it with that much garlic in it.
Oh, yes.
So you just cook that for a little bit till it gets tender. You never want to burn your garlic.
Couple of minutes, and that's one of the reasons you put it in after you've already sauteed your mushrooms and your onions, so that your garlic won't burn. And after a couple of minutes, that is going to be ready for the next edition. But this would be a great time to talk about the wines.
Well, I will, because it'll take just a minute or 2 to put that in. So the first wine we have,
oh boy,
is our 2018 Fiddlesticks Vineyard Pinot Noir. Mushrooms, bacon, Pinot Noir. So that's our first wine that we're going to try today, and that comes from the Santa Rita Hills down in Fiddlesticks Vineyard down in Santa Barbara County. The second wine we're going to taste, I'm very excited about, because I hadn't tasted it in a while until today. And this wine is just now being released to our wine club members in March. So our Cornerstone wine club members will be getting some of the 2018 Merlot from the Oakville station.
Oh, and this...
And I am very, very, very excited about that.
Once we tasted that soup, we both said, this just screams for Merlot as well. It'll be great with Pinot, because of mushrooms and bacon, but my goodness.
Yeah, and this is it's a medium full-bodied Merlot.
A little earthy, a lot of fruit, really nice.
Comes from the Oakville Station Vineyard right in the heart of Napa Valley, and it's got some pretty prestigious neighbors. We've got some other Cabernet growing around this block. We also get Cabernet Franc from the Oakville Station and Cabernet Sauvignon.
You can start to smell the garlic.
Okay, you can.
Yeah, it's starting to soften.
And the onions. It smells good. And this Merlot has about 6% Cabernet Sauvignon in it, and a couple of percent of just a tiny little hint of Cabernet Franc as well, all from the Oakville Station. So I am very excited about that. And then the third wine that we're going to pour is also a wine club selection this month. Yeah. So March Wine Club, which you should be starting to get your notifications either in this week or next. And this is Cabernet Sauvignon from Calistoga.
Mmm.
Yeah, and so Calistoga is a little farther up north in the valley. It's a little bit warmer. The grapes get a little riper. This is big, nice, bold. It was such a good vintage too in 2018. We got to pick exactly what we wanted to pick. The weather wasn't an issue. We didn't have a whole lot of heat spikes. Just overall, the 18 vintage really is outstanding.
So how are we starting to smell the garlic now?
So how are we coming on that? Are we ready for our next ingredients?
That's done. It's ready for the next ingredient.
All right. So our next ingredients is we're going to put in a pint of heavy whipping cream. That's the creamy part of a creamy bacon mushroom soup. And what heat are you on there?
I'm on medium low to low.
To low.
Because you never want
We don't want to really burn any
to.
of
You never
any of the
want to boil
ingredients.
your cream either.
One of the things I love about this recipe is that you don't have to. It doesn't take a lot of time ahead of time. You can cook it right before you're ready to serve it. It doesn't need to simmer for many hours. It's really kind of a quick, easy recipe.
It's
you get home
instant.
late from work.
And right before I put that in there, the whole kitchen with the garlic and the mushrooms and the onions smelled like a winter soup. I mean, it just smelled great.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about this is you can do this in either order. You can put the chicken broth in there, or you can put the cream in there next. It doesn't matter. So
well, next is the chicken broth. Funny you should mention that. And there's 8 ounces of that.
you can put that in first if you want. It doesn't really
You
matter.
could. Those two, you can. We've made this many times.
You just add
Practicing,
liquid.
make sure we have it right, and so we do know that you can do it either way.
Okay,
It's
now.
looking soupy.
Yeah, it's looking soupy, but it hasn't thickened yet, but it also hasn't melded all the flavors.
Nope.
But man, this is a soup that once you combine all the ingredients and you've built the soup, it's ready to eat.
It's
You don't
really
have to
good.
wait.
No, you don't have to wait. So the next ingredient is 3/4 cup of cheese. You can use Swiss or Gruyere. We've got Gruyere, so we're going to throw that in.
And you just stir that in. You might want to increase your heat a little bit because you've just added a couple of cold or cool ingredients.
Yep.
You want to heat the mixture back up before you add your cheese.
That is actually I'm going to make a note of that in the recipe. That's a very good idea. All right, so then you're going to put the cheese in. We shredded it. It makes it a little easier to melt, and if you don't throw it in all at one time, it will melt evenly and smoothly.
Yeah, I'm going to sort of sprinkle it in and stir.
Excellent. While you're doing that, I'm going to taste some wine. The first wine that I think is going to go really well with this is the 2018 Pinot Noir from the Fiddlesticks Vineyard down in Santa Rita Hills, down in Santa Barbara. And this is about a 50-50 blend of clone, Pommard clone 667, or Dijon clone 667 and 777. So it's been a nice blend for us. It's been pretty consistent, vintage after vintage. And I love the fruit from Santa Rita Hills.
We are big fans of Santa Rita Hills.
We are. It's nice and juicy and it's lush, but there's that nice herbaceous character that you should expect from Pinot Noir.
And all the cheese is in.
Okay, so all the cheese, all right,
And it's starting to melt.
starting up. All right, then the next thing that goes in is 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Then that you could use flour, you could use any other thickening agent that you like.
That next is.
Oh, you know what? Maybe next we should add the bacon back in.
Yeah, one time we forgot the
We
bacon.
did forget
It's
to
like
put the bacon
something's
back.
missing. It was like, oh yeah.
Oh
There was still a bowl of bacon on this counter.
yeah, there was. Like, well, what about the bacon in the bacon mushroom soup?
Yeah. Since it's the first word in the
Yeah.
name of the recipe.
Yeah. And yet that did not ruin it. No, it did. It still turned out just fine. So then we can put the cornstarch in.
Yeah, and you combine all the things in a small bowl.
You know, we did do it that way once.
Yeah.
Let's try that. So in a small bowl.
And here's what you do: you take 3 ounces of white wine, and we're using Cornerstone Sauvignon Blanc.
From the Farina Vineyard, because we had it open, and there it is.
Using that as a base.
Yeah, about 3 ounces of that.
There you go. That's about 3 ounces.
Excellent.
If it's not, I'll drink the excess. You put in your 1/4 teaspoon of salt, your 1/2 teaspoon of pepper.
And just a note about the salt. We're using unsalted butter to begin with, and we're using just a tiny bit amount of salt because you don't know how salty your bacon is, and the bacon that we have been using for this recipe has got a pretty good amount of salt in it, so we backed off the salt in the recipe.
It's a real minor adjustment. The one of the finished products was just a little salty. It was still delicious, but you don't want it too salty. And the bacon was salty enough, so we just use unsalted butter and we cut back on the salt a little bit.
Yeah. So in the recipe, we put a 1/4 teaspoon but people may want more.
And then the winemaker's pantry, the secret ingredient.
Our secret ingredient. So winemaker's pantry.
What was that, 2 tablespoons?
2 tablespoons of that. And we've been working with the winemaker's pantry now for a couple of years. They make these custom blends that are designed to go into foods that make them a great pair with wines, whatever wines you like to drink. And so Sharon DeMonte, she's the tastemaker over there at Winemaker's Pantry, and so she's put some blends together. There's one for Sauvignon Blanc, and there's one for Cabernet Franc, there's one for Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinot. So she's got quite a few of them, and so now you've just made a little...
A slurry. And this is a general note. Anytime you're adding a thickener, whether it's flour or cornstarch or whatever, this happens to be cornstarch, you always want to add it in a slurry of liquid. So instead of just dumping your cornstarch in and then you're really going to have to stir it crazy, you want to make a little liquid with it, and then you add it slowly and stir while you're going, and it'll thicken up rather quickly because it's already fairly warm.
I learned so much in this thing, you know. I just used to throw stuff in all together, and that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that winemaker's pantry adds so much flavor, and it always goes with the wine, so it's so
Yeah,
good.
it's a nice herb combination, and the nice thing about winemaker's pantry, unlike some of those others that you might find in the market that say, oh, here's an herb blend, they don't use very much salt at all. There's almost no salt in it, so you're not adding a salt component, you're only adding flavor. But we know that we've tried a lot of things that are on the market, and if you look at the ingredients, salt is way up towards the top.
Sometimes it's #1. We had one thing that was like, a wonderful spice mix, and we tasted it was like all
It was
salt.
all salt. So that's what I love about Winemaker's Pantry, is it's not a salt, it won't add salt to the meal.
All right, that is in, and it's already starting to thicken.
Okay?
What's
It is
next,
already
honey?
starting to thicken.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, you got cheese, you got cream in there, now you have a little bit of cornstarch, so it's all going to react to it pretty quickly.
so you could leave this to keep warm before your meal if you weren't ready to serve it just yet. But
And is
it
that
really is, that's it. All we have left, what's left to do is
How easy was that?
put it into a bowl, and then we'll garnish it. We're going to garnish it with a little bacon that we cooked in the beginning and set aside.
15 minutes of chopping and 20 minutes of cooking, and we're done.
And a little Parmesan cheese, add a little bit of that umami.
Oh yeah, we've got a nice little plate of accompaniments here. The Parmesan cheese, the cilantro, and the bacon, which is just a garnish on top.
Yeah, just chopped up a little cilantro. You can use parsley. You could throw some more of the Winemaker's Pantry spice blend on top with a nice fresh hit of green. I love that.
Well, winemaker, why don't you tell us a little bit more about some more wines?
I think I will. Are you
Thicken up.
going to, while this is thickening, and then we'll ladle up a bowl or two.
Yeah, you got it.
So the second wine that I just am looking forward to tasting with the soup is the Merlot. And this is our 2018 Merlot from Oakville Station, Cornerstone Cellars. And it does have a little bit of touch of Cabernet in it, Cabernet Sauvignon, about 6%, and then 2% Cab Franc. And so I think this is going to be a really lovely pair with the bacon. And certainly with the mushrooms in this. And I've been hesitant in the past to have red wines with creamy based dishes or sauces. And there's, having made this now a couple of different times in preparation to make it here, it's amazing that this cream based soup is beautiful with these red wines. It would also go well with the Sauvignon Blanc, because we did try that as well, and the Rosé from the Corlina Rosé that we make. But I'm thrilled that
Well,
this...
with the mushrooms and the herbs and the bacon, it sort of needs a little red.
And the savoriness of it. So that's the second wine, Wine Club selection for March. And then the third wine we're going to try is a Cabernet Sauvignon, and this will be coming from Calistoga. And this has 2% Petit Verdot in it, so it's just got that tiny little bit that gives it a little bit backbone and a little bit of depth in the core. And it's funny because people go, well, 2%, what difference does it make? Makes a big difference. 1%, 2%, 3% actually will change a wine quite a bit.
One little hint here is, since you're cooking with cream and butter and you're putting in a thickener, you want to make sure your heat stays fairly low, like medium low to low. You don't want to boil your cream. You don't want to thicken it up so fast that it becomes pasty. You don't want, glue.
I've done that.
Yeah.
I've made that in the past. Absolutely.
No, you learn by your mistakes.
And which is one of the reasons I used to think the soup was really difficult, complex, and I didn't really make them very often. And then I found a recipe like this, and 15, 20 minutes you're in. There was probably more prep time than cook time. It's just a matter of chopping your bacon, chopping up your ingredients, sauteing the onions and the mushrooms. So, I mean, if you are really in a hurry, you can buy chopped mushrooms in the store.
And if you wanted an even heartier soup, you could add a few ounces of red wine, and that will give it a little color, but also give it a little bit of body. But you don't need to. It's just so delicious the way it is.
Yep, I think she sent some really great recipe.
Oh, yeah.
Ready to try it?
I think it's just about thick enough. It could probably stand a couple more minutes of thickening, but let's just go ahead and give it a whirl.
Give it a taste. Yep. I think we should. If you ladle up a bowl, I am ready to taste this. So I'm going to start with the Pinot Noir, Cornerstone Cellars from Santa Barbara down in Santa Rita Hills. This is from the Fiddlesticks Vineyard. And Kathy Joseph has been farming the Fiddlesticks Vineyard for over 25 years. She was really quite visionary and a leader down there in the Santa Rita AVA. In fact, she bought land there before there was a Santa Rita Hills AVA. And so she's really, in this last year, she's been acknowledged for being a trendsetter. Oh my goodness, that's beautiful. Look at that. You ladled that in?
All garnished and everything.
Put a little garnish on there. Ooh, it is nice. Oh, the smell
And
that.
I put a spoon right over there.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow.
I'll take that.
Okay, you take that one. All right, so what I like to do when I'm pairing wine and food, even in our tasting room in Yountville, by the way, our tasting room in Yountville is open now. You're welcome to come in and visit. You can go online and make a reservation. We encourage reservations, but please make it a point to come in and taste with us.
And it's beautiful. It turned out beautiful. All the beautiful tile
yes,
work.
it's a beautiful space. But we do like to pair the wines with food and nibbles, and we will be getting to that shortly, probably in a few weeks or so. But I like to taste the wine first. Get a sense of the wine. How does it taste? How does it feel? What's the aftertaste? Texture? And then come in and taste your food.
That's a good
So
idea.
I'm gonna get a bite that's got some bacon.
Well, that's how you eat at the table too. You take a bite. You don't start slurping wine right away. I mean, you can toast and all that, but in order to find food and wine, you need food and then wine.
Well, this is the best one so far. This is our third one, and I think it was merely the salt adjustment, which.
Oh yeah.
We didn't adjust it very much, but that is savory.
We took out a quarter teaspoon of salt.
That's it.
Made the difference. Oh, that's very good. It comes through all bacony and mushroomy.
Bacon, amazing. Imagine that.
With a little hint of butter and cream.
Bacony, mushroomy.
And some garlic.
Try that with the Pinot Noir. And then I'm going to try it with the Cornerstone Cellars Merlot.
That will continue to thicken on your heat. Make sure you turn your heat off if you're going to walk away. But this will just continue to thicken just from the heat of the pan. And it was almost thick enough already, and as it's sitting here, it's getting just to the perfect consistency.
And we can turn that off.
It's off.
So the Merlot, as you would expect from that varietal, is a little heavier than the Pinot Noir. There's a richness to it, and there's a density to it.
Oh,
which
yeah.
you would expect from.
The Pinot Noir is light enough and delicate enough and nimble enough that it gets out of the way. It goes really well with the Pinot, with the bacon and the mushrooms, but can't wait to try it with the Merlot. This, when we first tasted this, I went, boy, this is going to be great with Merlot.
That is delicious. That you know what? That is a great soup. We're going to be making that a lot.
That's
Brace
nice.
yourselves. We're making that one a lot.
One time we got it even a little thicker. We had a little bit more cornstarch. This is better when it's a little more soupy.
All right, you've got the Merlot, 2018.
That's sort of the Goldilocks pairing there.
Kind of, don't you think?
I mean, this
It's
is very
the
good,
bacon,
light and
right?
delicate. This is kind of Goldilocks. I bet you this is going to be like that bigger, bolder style.
Yeah.
It just depends on how you like your food and wine
Yeah.
match.
Just recently, we've discovered bacon and Merlot together.
Yeah.
Not that we didn't think it didn't go, but
I think
now
Sean told us that in the tasting room.
we've been experimenting with it ever since. Turns out it's true. So you know, Merlot must be a breakfast wine.
Well, for many people it is.
All right, I'm going to go to the Calistoga Cabernet.
Either that or
Yeah.
bacon should be served at dinner.
Well, I think that is true. You absolutely can do that. Okay, 2018 Calistoga Cabernet.
That is the best one we've made.
It is the best, yes. It's perfectly balanced.
Texture, balance, and salt levels. That's really good.
It's perfectly balanced.
Don't be discouraged if you make a batch that's not perfect.
It was still good. We still ate it.
It was delicious.
But that's actually very good.
But with me, sometimes with recipes, what I like to do when I get a new recipe is just make it exactly as it says. Even if you go, well, that doesn't really sound right.
Or
Make
we
it
like
the
a little bit more of that. But
make it the way they say to, and then you can go back and then you can, with some knowledge, decide if you're going to tweak something, add something.
yeah.
Because I thought, well, maybe this needs a little twist of lime. Well, we're just for you know what I mean. Like I was thinking that, but then
And you could add your lime if you wanted to when the onions are cooking, but you don't want to add it after you've got your cream and butter in there, particularly the cream.
Yeah.
But I got to thank the club member that sent this in. She really knew what she was doing. It's a really good, delicious, easy to follow recipe. Simple, clean, and easy to make very quick. But she said, I bet you this will be good with some of the reds. And she said Merlot might be great. And
Well,
she's
Merlot's one of
right
our
on.
favorites. And then I had to explain that we were actually out of the 2017 Merlot. It's sold out. So everyone's eagerly awaiting the 18 to be
Yeah.
released.
Luckily, she still had some in her cellar.
The 17, yes, but we are out of it. So the 17's are coming, people.
The
So
18.
sorry, the 18 is coming. It is. We're just about ready to release it, and it's beautiful. So that's it for us. The recipe. Thank you so much for the recipe that you sent in. We would be happy to have other suggestions.
We
and
hope
if
to see
there's
others.
some other pairings that you'd like us to try that we probably haven't tried yet. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, right? Since we ended up spending a whole bunch of time at home.
Yeah.
And here we are still in the kitchen. So thank you for joining us once again. We won't be here next week. Maybe. You know what? I am not actually sure where we'll be next week. I might say hello from Nashville. I'm headed off to Nashville. We're doing the Cornerstone is supporting the wine auction there.
I won't see you next week. We won't be cooking in the kitchen, but
We won't be in the kitchen.
you'll always be able to say hello to Kari. She's always going to be around.
Unless we do something on Instagram, and then you and I can work together. So
That's true. She'll be in Nashville.
That's
I'll
right.
be here.
So thank you for joining us. It's been great having you, and I would say make this recipe.
Yeah.
While it's still cold outside and the wind's still blowing.
Here's to the end of winter.
Oh, here's to the end of winter. Is that groundhog? Did that groundhog tell the truth?
I hope they did, or we should shoot it.
You can't shoot the groundhog. Puxatawny Bill. Can't do that. Anyway, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.